readers. Trisha Goyer here, and I'm here with my friend Leslie Gould. So, first of all, welcome, Leslie. I am
Thank
so
you.
glad to be here today. We're going to be talking about your book in just a second, your newest book. But why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I live in Portland, Oregon with my husband. We have 4 adult children who range in age from 36 to 25, and we have one grandbaby, who's two,
Oh,
who, just has been an amazing delight. Everyone tells you it's wonderful, but you have no idea until it happens, and we're just over the top. People have to tell us to calm down about it.
exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I've been writing for or publishing. I've been writing for 30 years, publishing for 20 years, but
Mm,
had 45 books published altogether.
that is awesome. So,
So,
we're going to be talking today about A Brighter Dawn. And I will tell you, so this is my it's just a me thing, I guess. I don't like reading the back cover copy. I don't want to know anything about the book. Like I just want to start with page one and I want to just get fully involved with the characters. So, reading this, I'm thinking, okay, it's gonna start on a farm and it's gonna start with a young woman, maybe with a guy that she's interested in. Oh no, no. Oh no, it did not start that way. And I was like, what? This is really cool. So it's
mm,
Mennonites and it's in the Pacific Northwest and they have a tree farm and then tragedy quickly comes. So I'm like, okay, this is really cool. So I know eventually we're probably because we have the head covering and all
mhm.
this, we're gonna get there. And then it goes into split time. So I did not even know that it was
Oh,
split time because I just like I don't want to know because when I read the back cover copy, then I'm already figuring out how the story is going to go. As a
mhm.
writer, I'm like, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen, and I just want to enjoy the story without thinking ahead and watching, or in my mind watching the whole thing play out before I even get started. So I just start. So then it's split time, and it's World War II, and it's one of her family members going to Germany, and they're in Germany right before, when Hitler is rising to power, and I'm like, I love this. So I already loved it
Mhm.
before we got to the split time, and then it got to the split time, and I like called my assistant Kristen. I'm like, Kristen, this book is so good. Like I'm enjoying it so much. So all that to say,
Oh,
Leslie, you have hit all the buttons with me on
oh,
this book.
I'm so happy. That's great. Thank you, Trisha.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
wanna hear,
thanks.
like, how you got the idea so first of all, it's so different than, like, most head covering books that we see out there, just the family to begin with, even before the split time. So how
Mhm.
did you come up with these ideas and then mesh them together?
Okay. Well, I think this all started because I love writing split time, dual time, time slip,
Mhm.
whatever we call it, novels. And this is my fourth split time series.
Okay.
And, I write Amish or fiction about the Amish and Mennonites. So,
Mhm.
generally it's a mix. But, you know, we think about the rest of society going through those big times in
Mhm.
history, and yet we don't think very much how those times affected the Amish. So I've written about the Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War One, World War Two. I even had a little bit about Vietnam War, just because they were always affected by these big historical events, and especially war. And I love juxtaposing the Amish and the English. Um, because it shows the differences, but it also shows what's the same too. And there's
Mhm.
a whole lot that's the same. We all love our kids. We all want them to follow the Lord. There's just a whole lot going on that we have in common. So I started writing the time slip, and sometime in doing research, and somehow I missed this. I knew that the other churches in Germany, except for the Confessing Church, supported Hitler, but I hadn't thought that the Mennonite church did. I just didn't even think about it, and then doing some other research, I came across that, and it really
I
kind
know,
of
I was shocked when I came across that in the novel. I'm like, "What? I didn't even know." And I read a lot about World War II. Like, I was in Barnes& and Noble the other day, and I'm like, "I've read that, I've read that, I've read that." Like, I couldn't find hardly anything new because I love that time period. And so for me, I'm like, "This is amazing," because I did not know that at all.
right, and so I came across that, and then my big story question was, why would the Mennonites support Hitler? And I think I explain it in the story. And it, it all ended up making sense. But I thought, wow, this is really a cautionary tale for any group of Christians. Like, what are we willing to give up and sacrifice out of fear?
Mhm.
So I knew I wanted to write about that. So then I came up with the historical thread, which is set in 2014. So I came across in my research a couple really good books. One is Chosen Nation: Mennonites in Germany in a Global Era, and the other is European Mennonites and the Holocaust. These were
Mhm.
both published after 2014 when the book is set. Um, and then I've come across some just interesting sermons and things on the topic that were
Mhm.
after 2014 too. So I think the Mennonites in general are kind of, grappling with this and addressing it. After World War II, it was pretty much hidden, and people who outwardly supported the Germans, there were a few hearings and things like that, but nothing really happened, and it was super complicated and nuanced.
Mhm. Mhm.
So anyway, so then the contemporary thread was the, great aunt telling the story and her dealing with it, but then there's also a white supremacist thread that
Mhm.
kind of connects the contemporary and historical stories.
Right, so the contemporary
So
even has, like, this mystery element to it. You're trying to figure out what's going on with the contemporary thread and what really happened with this accident, and I don't wanna give too much away. But I love how it's like, this is what's happening in history, but this is also what's happening in modern day, and these
mhm,
are how people are affected today, but it also helps them understand history better. And I also
mhm.
didn't know about the hunger, the millions of people that died,
Yeah, right.
and
Yeah,
that was so even before World War II,
mhm,
the 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 government was holding all this food back, and millions of people were dying from hunger, even though there was
mhm,
warehouses of food. And so I'm reading your novel, and like I'm loving the novel. And then a friend came over. They're from out of town. They happened to stop by there in town on Monday. We're sitting on my back patio, and we're just talking. And her grandmother was in Germany. She was a child in Germany, in Berlin. She was telling me like her grandmother
aw.
remembers seeing Hitler, but then she
Oh,
remembers like she
wow.
was taken to the countryside, and then the Russians came through. So they took her to the countryside to protect her, and then the Russians came in, and they were so
Mhm,
vicious. And I'm like, and you got to realize the context of history because they
mhm,
millions of them were dying from hunger. And I'm like, I know this because of Leslie's novel
mhm,
that I'm currently
mhm,
reading, and we had this very good conversation about what's right and wrong and good and bad, centered upon
mhm.
like often it's so easy to have black and white, but
Right.
when you read history and of course we know that, and like my friend and I were talking about, we know the end, we know the
Mhm.
Holocaust, we know what was to come. They did
They
not
had no idea.
know any of those things,
Mhm.
and so
Although they
yeah.
had glimpses,
Mhm.
I mean, definitely the persecution of the Jews had started, early, like by 33, 34. Yeah.
Right,
A
and so yeah.
and then to think about the forced famine, that Stalin caused in Ukraine in the early 1930s, and now what's going on in Ukraine now with Putin and, the stopping of shipment of grains, their farms, have been bombed, to smithereens, and the same thing is going on again. And just,
Yeah.
that brutality and that
Mhm.
viciousness, like what you said, how that just carries on through the decades.
Yeah, and so when I was reading this, I'm like, "Did she write about this because of what was happening in Ukraine?" Like, I
Yeah,
think she had to, like I don't know.
no.
I know, it's just like
I
it just happens, history repeats itself,
I
and
know. Isn't just writing weird? Like, I was writing about the pandemic of 1918, 1919, had that all planned, ready to go before our pandemic, and all of a sudden, it was just so weird, and then I had the first draft of A Brighter Dawn done, and I had the whole Ukrainian thing done, and, I loved my character, Johan, who is a young Ukrainian
Mhm.
man, and here he's fighting age and Russia has invaded Crimea. And I'm finishing up that first draft in February of 2022 and bang, and here I'm thinking about Johan, my, fictional character, but he represented to me all of the young men in Ukraine and the young women who have now, had to go off to war. and such a
Yeah.
bigger war than it was in 2014.
Right. And so
Um,
really we could say Leslie's just a prophet that's writing all these
yeah,
things that happen.
I know.
Or we could say,
Oh, I
or
really
we
got to
could
be
say
careful.
history repeats itself
Oh,
and we're
for
seeing the
sure.
same themes that
Hmm.
happened in history that are happening now. Just in my son's homeschool yesterday, they were talking about South Africa and about Nelson Mandela and the persecution of people there. I'm like, this is a repeat of it's a repeat
Hmm.
things happening in the United States. I mean, it's just hard things happen in our world.
I know,
But yeah,
but there's redemption and there's
but there's
hope.
redemptions. Yeah.
But I do wonder if we're on like a 70 or 80-year cycle.
Yeah.
I mean, just with the rise of all the authoritarians. And my dad was a World War II vet and fought in, the
Mhm.
Battle of the Bulge, liberated concentration camps, all of that. And he died in 2017. His generation is almost gone. And I think it's up to us to tell these stories and to remind people and to never forget
Yeah.
because these authoritarians they just keep popping up.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read the back cover copy because I mentioned I don't like to read it, but we need to have some context for all this that we're saying. So the main character is Ivy Zimmerman, and it says Ivy Zimmerman is successfully navigating her life as a young Mennonite woman, one generation removed from her parents' old order Amish upbringing. But when her parents are killed in a tragic accident, Ivy's way of life is upended. As she deals with her grief, her younger sister's needs, the relationship with her boyfriend, and her daddy and mommy's strict rules, Ivy finds solace in both an upcoming trip to Germany for an international Mennonite youth gathering and in her great great aunt's story about Claire Simons, another young woman who visited Germany in the late 1930s. So that gives you the context because we're like talking about modern day and historical. And we're like, what is the
What is the
story even
story
about?
about? Yeah.
And so that's what it's about. And so this young woman, I mean, they're driving cars, like at the beginning, like they're removed from that strict upbringing, but that foundational family generational stuff, you see it in her parents are there, and then as they reconnect with some of the family that they have not been connected to, you see that all these traditions and stuff that were kind of in her family came from somewhere. Like her
Mhm.
parents had this foundation, and even when the family members are asking like, well, what was your dad like, what was your mom like, Ivy's even realizing like, oh, it's because of this upbringing that they had in the past, because of traditions and because that's who they were, and
Mhm.
which also plays into the story. It's so hard to talk about these things without giving too much away,
Mhm.
but so good about these themes through history are in modern day, and they're tying everything together. And then there's that mystery element, like what did happen with the car accident, what was going on there. So you're guessing about that, and then you're going back in history and you're guessing about what's happening there. And it was a very very good read. And for people that say, I don't know, I don't like to read like Amish and Mennonite books and everything's so simple and like nothing exciting happens. Well, okay, that is not this book. Let me just say, even though it looks very peaceful on the front, there's a lot going on,
Don't
and
judge it by its cover.
don't judge it by its cover. And I'm like,
Which
at
is a
soccer
beautiful
practice,
cover. I love the cover.
it is a gorgeous cover.
Mhm.
But I'm even at soccer practice going, okay, is it really bad right now if I like sit here and get more out of the book, because I love watching soccer practice, but I really just want to find out what's going to happen next in
Oh.
the story. So I
Mm.
love that. So I want to hear. Okay, so this is part of a series, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so tell us more about that.
Yeah. So the series is called Amish Memories, and the theme is just how memories shape us, and even the memories
Mhm.
of Ivy's parents, had shaped her, even though they didn't talk about it very much.
Mhm.
So it's memories of the past that shape us, our own memories. Now are there these three Zimmerman daughters, young women, who've lost their parents, and what memories do they have from their childhood
Mhm.
moving on. So the second book is called This Passing Hour, and it's about Brenna Zimmerman, and she's the middle daughter, totally different than Ivy.
Mhm.
And Johann, who's in the first book, pops back up in the second book.
Mhm.
And the historical thread is about their great aunt Martha. who, great Aunt Martha, who worked or volunteered with the Red Cross during World War II, so we're moving
Mm.
forward in time. And they also have, German POWs on the farm, so over 300,000 German POWs,
That part
you
is
know.
so fascinating to me,
Yeah,
yeah.
isn't that fascinating? Fascinating, were shipped to the US, and they worked on farms in Pennsylvania, and they worked on plain farms too. So, yeah, so she's the father's ill, and she ends up supervising these POWs, which was quite a feat. And the thing with the POWs was it wasn't illegal for them to try to escape. That was part of the Geneva Convention. I mean, it was almost like it was expected. And not that many did, but some definitely did. It was illegal to help them escape.
Mm.
So it would be illegal for an American or anyone living in the U.S. to help them escape. So there's a lot of tension and conflict, and it brings up more about the Mennonite family that's still in Germany, and what's going on with all of that. And then the third book in the series is By Evening's Light, and it's the youngest sister Treva's story.
Mm.
So
Okay, that sounds so good. 'Cause when do they release? I wanna
so
know.
yeah, so This Passing Hour releases November 28th, this coming November, and then By Evening's Light will release in 2024.
We don't wanna talk about that,
So
that's too far away.
right, and that'll make me anxious to talk about it because I'm in the middle of writing it.
I know, it's always like, "Where's the next book?" It's so funny when a book releases and they're like, "I read it in 4 hours, where's the next book?" And
I
I'm like,
know.
That took so long to work on, like, you just need to chill out a little bit." But I think once
Right.
you get wrapped up, because 'cause I'm already like, "Okay, when is that? I wanna hear
Mhm.
more because you
Oh,
you
good.
fall in love with the sisters too, and one of the sisters was involved in the accident with her parents'
Mhm.
death, and then that's
Yeah.
just heartbreaking. So, like, being in her and you already see it from Ivy's point of view, how hard it is on her,
Mhm.
but to have it from her point of view, it's gonna
Mhm.
be I'm like, already, like, it's gonna
I
be a
know.
really good book.
And isn't that the thing about memories and families? Every single member can have different memories about what happened, depending on how it affected them,
Yeah.
you know?
My brother and I will talk about something, I'm like, "What? That it didn't happen like that." He's like, "Yeah, it did," or he'll bring up something I completely forgot that would be a
Yeah.
pretty big memory. I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I totally forgot about that."
Mhm.
But yeah, it's so
Yeah, I'm the
interesting.
youngest of 4, and I'm always asking my older siblings about things because my memories are murky and theirs are a whole lot clearer, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm the oldest of 2 that I grew up with, and then we found, 5 siblings, which is a whole 'nother story. I'm talking about
Oh,
entwined
yeah.
memories,
Yeah.
but, yeah, but I as the oldest, I'm like, "No, it happened this way and this way and this way," but even my brother will see things differently or have
Mhm.
remembered things differently, like, okay, he's 4 years younger than me. I'm like, "Okay, I can
Mhm.
see okay, I remember that now," but yeah, it's so interesting. So I
Mhm.
love that even parts of history impact us in ways that we may not know.
Right. Oh, exactly. Especially our family histories, and as we get older, I could certainly my dad actually wrote a book about his experiences in World War II. He turned his
Mm,
diaries into a book. And, the older I get, I feel like I'm more insight into those experiences that he had. And, how what happened to him affected all of us,
mhm.
so
Yeah, yeah. My,
yeah.
dad that
Mhm.
raised me, my stepdad was a Vietnam veteran, and at first
Oh.
I'm like, "He was so distant, and he didn't even care about our lives," and now I'm like, "Oh, he had PTSD,
Mhm.
and he was a medic, and
Mhm.
he
Oh.
had" so I think, as you get older too, you realize how hard life is, and I think we have more
Yeah.
compassion for other
Oh,
people.
no. Oh,
So,
so true, Trisha. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
yeah,
Right,
and
and it's
also
nuanced and complicated, and, people are motivated by different things, and yeah.
yeah. So, okay,
Mhm.
so I love this book, A Brighter Dawn. The Amish Memories, book 1, and then the other ones are coming out. So, I have to just hear, is this series are you gonna continue with is this just gonna be a 3-book series? Is there gonna be more after that? Do you have other plans? What's happening? I mean, in the future with
Yeah.
Leslie.
Well, yeah, this will be a 3-book series. I'm
Okay.
working on ideas, for the next series and plan to do time slip, dual time again. And one of my ideas is I'd love to write about the 1690s in Switzerland when Jacob Ammon splits from the Swiss Brethren and starts the Amish. And my great grandparents came from a village in that area in Switzerland. I've been back there. Lots of some of my relatives don't have a birth date given. There's only a death date, and the Anabaptists weren't baptized as infants, so they didn't often have birth dates listed because
Okay.
they weren't christened in the church, and that's how you get a
Right.
birth
Yeah.
date. So I'm just really curious. I mean, I know I have Mennonites in my background, but and I may never know my family history, but I do know that my family in Switzerland had grazing rights in the Alps starting in the 1400s. So
Okay.
I know that they were there, during that time. So anyway, I just would really love to explore Jacob Ammon's, and I would have a fictitious character connected to him and somehow.
You just got to go research. That's the whole fun
Yeah.
part of
Oh, I
it.
know. Yeah, I want to go back. So yeah, so that's kind of my next goal. Is
That's
to
so cool.
come
Yeah,
up with more of the history of the Amish.
I have Mennonite ancestors that were in Connecticut that I'm like, what? Because now I'm just getting into all the ancestry stuff. Like, where did these Mennonite people come from? So I think it originally was France, but before France it
Oh,
was
yeah.
Switzerland. So
Yeah, right.
Leslie, maybe we're related.
We're probably yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's not very many Mennonite. I don't know. We'll see. There probably is more than we think, but
Well,
yeah,
there really aren't that many.
yeah.
I know of like the other side of the family, not the ones that I've traced back to Switzerland, but other ones who were Mennonite. They came, to the New World, ended up moving south and became Baptists.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that was probably pretty typical.
Yeah, but
So,
it is amazing to see these family members of faith that faced persecution, that had to
yeah.
move,
Mhm.
they came to the New World for a reason because of
Yes.
persecution. And then,
Mhm.
yeah, it just makes me dig into the story. So, yeah, I'll join you on
Mhm.
that research trip,
Yes.
Leslie. We'll
Yes,
just
that
go.
would be so
We're
fun.
going to have grazing rights next to your grazing rights, I'm pretty sure. Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, so
definitely.
another question
Mhm.
I love to ask is, what Christian fiction have you been enjoying? Have you enjoyed in the past? Because I'm avid readers of Christian fiction. They're always like, tell me about all the books I need to read. So I would
Okay.
love to hear some of your suggestions.
Okay. So I just read Suzanne Woods Fisher's Anything But Plain, which is
Mhm.
just remarkable. I love Suzanne. I love her
Yeah.
writing. And this one is about a young woman who has ADHD, who's Amish, and
Ooh.
Suzanne did such an amazing job with it. And she also explores organic farming. So again, like these are topics that you might not expect, and just uh,
Yeah.
Amish novel, but Suzanne does a great job.
Yeah.
It was really incredible. I highly, highly recommend it. And then I'll tell you some of the books I'm reading right now. I'm in the middle of Under the Magnolias by T.I. Lowe.
I've heard
Have
so
you
many good things about
So
that.
I'm loving it. I've actually made myself stop because I have a whole bunch of, deadlines, and I like just binge on books. I will consume it. I will read it straight through and not get one word written in a day.
Mhm.
So my only hope to stop that is to just put the book down and say you can't read this till you've met your deadline. Um, and then another book I'm in the middle of that I've put on hold for right now is The Winter Rose by Melanie Dobson.
Mm,
And here, I
yeah.
love everything by Melanie, and I
Yes.
love Melanie. Yeah,
Yes.
and she's just like the queen of dual time stories. I mean,
Mhm.
she really, really has it down. And then a book that's next on my list is by Liz Tolsma, What I Would Tell You, and it's
Mhm.
set during World War II, and it's time slip too.
Yeah.
So I love reading time slip, and I love writing time slip.
So
So
many books, so little time. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
I'm the same way.
definitely.
I just want to finish. I listen mostly on audiobook just because I have all the kids and all the stuff going on. I'm like,
Mhm.
let me just go fold another load of laundry because I could get in
Yeah.
some more of my book.
And then do you find
Uh,
yourself, like, doing extra housework?
exactly.
That's
Like I just need to,
I
yeah,
do that. Yeah, "Oh,
yeah,
I think I'll clean out this
exactly.
cupboard."
Yeah, I think I'm gonna sit here and rearrange my drawer right now because I want to just finish this chapter. Oh, and there's a comment from Janet. She says there's a group, maybe a town of Mennonites within an hour south of where I live that have a restaurant and other things, and that's in Georgia. Yeah,
Oh,
so
that's
it's really
great.
neat that there are Mennonites and Amish. That Amish I write about are in Montana. It's amazing to see. And yours talks about the international Mennonites because they were
Mhm.
all over the place. When
Yes.
your character was talking about these
Mhm,
different groups of Mennonites, they were all over
mhm.
the world, which
Yes.
was
And,
amazing.
growing groups of Mennonites in African countries, just yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
so cool. Well, I'm so thankful that okay, we have this book, and then there's another one coming out at the end of the year. Next year, we're gonna have to we're not gonna talk about that story yet
Yes.
because that's too far off, and you're in
Get
the middle of writing
get
it. We
the
don't
scrap
wanna
written.
yeah, I know. You're like, "I don't know." And it's so funny, I get to the place in it where, like, "This book is never gonna work out," or "This is not coming together," and then it does, and you're like,
I
"Okay, that was"
know. Isn't
we
that and that never ends. That's what just shocks me about having written for so long and written so many novels that I get to that point every single time.
yeah. I have my, I was just telling someone, I spoke at a writers conference. I have my extras file where because I'm like, this chapter doesn't work. It doesn't even improve the plot. There's nothing going on here. And then I'll cut it. Before I used to like delete it, but now I learned to cut and paste it into a new document because eventually later I'm like, oh, actually I did need that because it tells the motivation for this, and I'll plug them back in. So I know now not to delete those chapters or
Oh,
scenes or
yeah.
whatever just to put them in an
Mhm.
extra file because I'm like, "Oh, there was a reason why I wanted that
Oh,
scene in here."
yeah. Right, and to have to recreate that, that would
I
that would
know.
be a big crying session for me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well,
Yeah.
Leslie, I just appreciate you so much, and I love this book.
Oh, thank
I'm
you,
not all the way done yet, but
Trisha.
I'm enjoying it. The audiobook is excellent, by the way, so if anyone loves audiobooks, this is one that you'll just love listening to. But where can people go to get more information about you and your books and to connect with you?
Yeah, great. We'll start with lesliegould.com, and from there you can hop onto my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, although I don't do much with Twitter. And I do a lot of giveaways on my blog.
Okay.
So yeah, so hop on over there and shoot me an email if you have any questions or find me on Facebook.
Good. Yeah,
I'd
and
I'd love to connect.
it's always worth connecting or subscribing to that blog, so when she's doing the giveaways, you'll be one of the first to
Yes.
know.
So I forgot my newsletter.
Okay,
Definitely sign up for my newsletter because I post all of my giveaways there first. So, and then
good.
check your
Well, I love
junk
it.
and let me let me
I
into your
know.
inbox.
I know, that's the hard part, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
well, Leslie,
So,
thank you so much for being here.
oh,
It has been great. I'm enjoying your books, and keep going. Finish that
thank,
deadline.
thank you, Trisha, and I appreciate your books and everything that you do.
Oh,
Just really, really do. So
thank
thank
you so
you.
much.